Years of age, I believe, when my brother John gave me a book called Altered States of Consciousness. And within that book, Andy Weil was referenced on expanded consciousness, and I got really excited. I was going to charismatic Christian revival meetings and seeing people being saved, but it kind of was cool from my perspective that they were achieving this altered state of consciousness. So I thought, that's part of all the same idea here. I really owe credit to Andrew Weil.
I think he read one of my early books in which I wrote about mushroom hunting and psychedelic mushrooms, and made some reference to medicinal mushrooms as well.
It was like a turning point, you know. I certainly was awakened that other people were thinking about expanding consciousness. And so I gave this book to my friend Ryan Snyder. So Ryan took it home, and a few days later I said, Ryan, where's my book? And he told me his dad had burned it. I said, burned my book? Rather than giving it back to me or calling my parents, he actually took the initiative to burn this book. I owe Ryan Snyder's father a deep debt of gratitude, because that single act galvanized my interest, saying if this is so powerful to cause a person to do such a bizarre act, then I should examine what this subject's all about.
Human existence on this earth goes back an extraordinarily long period of time, most of which we have no identifiable information. It's entirely plausible, given that the indigenous people all around the world know intimately all the plant life and will know the different combinations of plant life, that our prehistoric ancestors, they had come across the plants that do alter consciousness.
In about 2 million years, the human cortex tripled in size, and the brain exploded over a ridiculously short span of evolutionary time. 2 million years is nothing when it comes to evolution. What triggered that?
In the late 1970s, Terence McKenna and his brother Dennis McKenna were the first that proposed the stoned ape hypothesis. It is known now that 22 primates, 23 including us, consume mushrooms. And the idea is our ancestors, they came out of the trees and went across the savannah, would be tracking animals that were pooping. Well, in the subtropics, the most common mushroom coming out of those cow patties is Psilocybe cubensis, a very potent magic mushroom.
One thing that mushrooms and other psychedelics do reliably is they induce synesthesia. Synesthesia is the perception of one sensory modality in another. Hearing colors, for example, or seeing music. You have these profound experiences, and you have to put yourself in their place and imagine what the impact of such an experience must have been on an early hominid.
These magic mushrooms open up the floodgates of information you receive. Basically, you can think of it as a contact fluid between the synapses within the brain. Wow, what a competitive advantage, especially if you're working with the geometry of weapons or having to put together something that will give you a better chance of survival. The fact that this happened not once, not twice, but millions upon millions of times over millions of years is a very plausible explanation for the tripling of the brain 2 million years ago.
It's not so simple to say that they ate psilocybin mushrooms and suddenly the brain mutated. I think it's more complex than that, but I think it was a factor. It was like a software to program this neurologically modern hardware to think, to have cognition, to have language. Because language is essentially synesthesia. Language is an association with inherently meaningless sound, except that it's associated with a complex of meaning. A great deal of the brain's real estate, you might say, is devoted to the generation and or the comprehension of language. Those neural structures are not found in our ancestors. That's a human trait, to have so much physiology devoted to generating and understanding language. And that's a reflection of evolutionary events that made us what we are.